The stars had always been quiet. For 200 years, humanity had looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They had sent signals into the darkness. They had listened for answers. They had dreamed of meeting other life forms among the distant stars. On the morning of June 15th, 2247, they got their answer. High Consul stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Through the massive viewing window, he watched the blue and green planet grow larger as his fleet moved closer. Earth, such a small world, such a young species. He had studied them during the journey. Humans, they called themselves. They had only discovered space travel 2 centuries ago. They were infants compared to the Dominion. His empire had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They had conquered 312 species across 4,000 star systems. Not one had ever resisted for more than a single solar cycle. The pattern was always the same. They would arrive with their massive fleet. They would deliver the submission edict. The primitive species would see the size of the armada, understand their hopeless situation, and surrender. It was efficient. It was clean. It was the natural order of things. Looked at the 2,000 warships that followed his flagship. Each one was a mountain of metal and weapons. Each one could destroy a city with a single blast. Against this force, the humans had perhaps 600 small vessels. Most of them were not even proper warships. The High Consul allowed himself a small smile. This would be the easiest conquest in centuries. "Begin the broadcast," he commanded. His communications officer activated the transmission array. The message would be sent in every human language. They had studied Earth's broadcasts for years before arriving. They knew how to speak to these creatures. His voice echoed across the solar system, reaching every radio, every screen, every device on Earth and its colonies. "People of Earth, I am High Consul of the Dominion. Your world and all your territories are now claimed by the Empire. You have 72 hours to accept this truth. Kneel before us and you will live as servants of a great civilization. Resist us and your world will become ash. Your species will become a memory. This is not a threat. This is simply how things are. We have done this 312 times before. We have never failed. You will not be the exception. Surrender and survive. Fight and die. The choice is yours, but we already know what you will choose. Every species chooses survival." The transmission ended, clasped his 4 hands behind his back and waited. In his experience, the response would come within hours. Panicked leaders would contact him, begging for terms. Populations would riot in fear. Governments would collapse under the pressure. Then the formal surrender would come, and his soldiers would land on the surface to begin the process of integration. He waited. On Earth, 8 billion humans watched the message. They saw the alien fleet on their screens. They heard the cold, certain voice of the High Consul. For a long moment, the entire planet was silent. People stood in the streets, staring at their phones. Workers stopped in factories. Children looked to their parents for answers. In Geneva, the United Defense Council gathered in an emergency session. Military leaders from every nation sat around a massive table. Scientists, diplomats, and world leaders filled the room. On the main screen, they could see the fleet hanging in space like a dark cloud. General was the first to speak. She was a tall woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen 3 wars. She had led soldiers in the most desperate battles Earth had ever known. She looked at the alien fleet on the screen, then at her fellow leaders. "They expect us to be afraid," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "They expect us to fall apart, to beg, to surrender our children and our future to slavery." She paused, looking around the room. "I say we give them something they do not expect." The room was silent. Then Admiral Wei, commander of Earth's Space Forces, stood up. "What do you suggest?" General smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We show them what humans do when someone threatens our home. We show them that we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. We show them that they made a terrible mistake coming here." The debate lasted 6 hours. Some argued for negotiation. Others wanted to attempt communication to reason with the aliens. But as the hours passed, a strange thing happened. Fear began to transform into something else, something harder, something older. It was the same feeling that had driven humans to fight against impossible odds throughout their history. It was defiance. The vote was unanimous. 20 hours after the transmission, humanity sent its response. It was broadcast on all frequencies, aimed directly at the alien fleet. The message was simple. It showed an image of a human fist, raised against a starry background. Below it were two words, written in every language on Earth. "Come take." On his command deck received the response. He stared at the image for a long moment. His officers exchanged confused glances. This had never happened before. No species had ever responded with defiance. It was illogical. It was foolish. It was unexpected. "High Consul," his second-in-command said carefully, "what does this mean?" Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "It means they are stupid. It means they do not understand what they face." He turned to his tactical officer. "Move the fleet forward. We will teach these humans what happens to species that refuse to kneel." As the massive armada began to advance toward Earth, felt nothing but amusement. These humans were foolish. They were primitive. They had no idea what was coming. But deep in his mind, in a place he did not want to examine, something bothered him. He had seen the faces of 312 species when they received the submission edict. He had seen fear. He had seen despair. He had seen hopelessness. When he looked at the human response, he saw none of those things. The fist, the two words, they spoke of something he had not encountered in his 600 years of conquest. They spoke of a species that was not afraid to die. Push the thought away. It did not matter. Superior firepower always won. Numbers always won. The humans would learn this truth soon enough. He did not know that he was about to learn a different truth, a truth that would change everything. Some species do not calculate their odds before fighting. Some species fight simply because fighting is who they are. Some species would rather burn than bow. He was about to meet such a species. And the galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet gathered near Mars. Admiral Way stood on the bridge of her flagship, the United Earth ship Hope, and looked at the forces under her command. 600 ships. Some were proper warships built for combat. Others were cargo vessels with weapons attached to their hulls. Some were even mining ships, their drilling lasers modified to cut through armor instead of rock. Against them came 2,000 warships. Each enemy vessel was 3 times the size of the largest human ship. Each one carried weapons that could crack a moon in half. Admiral knew the math. She knew they could not win this battle, but winning was not the point, not today. She activated her communication system and spoke to her fleet. Her voice reached every captain, every pilot, every soldier waiting in the darkness of space. "This is Admiral, I will not lie to you. We are outnumbered. Many of us will not survive this day." She paused, letting the words sink in. "But we are not here to survive. We are here to send a message. We are here to show these invaders that Earth is not free, that humanity does not surrender, that every inch of space between here and our home will cost them blood." She looked at the screen showing the approaching enemy fleet. "Today, we become the wall that protects our families. Today, we show the universe what humans are made of. Today, we fight not for victory, but for something greater. We fight for the right to stand on our feet and say, we are not slaves. We will never be slaves." Across 600 ships, men and women checked their weapons. They looked at pictures of their families. They said quiet prayers. They were afraid. Of course they were afraid, but beneath the fear was something stronger. Pride, defiance, a stubborn refusal to accept the future they had planned for them. The fleet moved forward in their traditional formation. They called it the Crescent of Dominion. The ships formed a massive curved line designed to surround and overwhelm the enemy. It was a psychological weapon as much as a tactical one. Countless species had seen that crescent closing around them and lost all hope. High Consul watched from his command deck as his ships advanced. This would be quick. The humans would see the crescent forming around them. Their small fleet would scatter in panic. Then his ships would hunt them down one by one. The two fleets met near the orbit of Mars. What happened next shocked every commander in the Armada. The human ships did not scatter. They did not try to run. Instead, they charged directly at the center of the formation. It was insane. It was suicide. It was exactly what Admiral had ordered. "All ships attack Formation Alpha," she commanded. "Hit them hard and fast. Make them feel every shot. For Earth." 600 human ships plunged into the lines like a knife into flesh. They fired every weapon they had. Missiles, lasers, and plasma cannons lit up the darkness. Small ships darted between the massive cruisers, targeting engines and weapon systems. The returned fire with devastating force. Human ships exploded like fireworks. Hundreds of lives vanished in an instant. But for every ship they destroyed, the humans kept coming. They fought with a fury they had never seen. Captain commanded the destroyer Defiant. Her ship was small and fast, designed for quick strikes. When a cannon blast tore through her engine room, killing half her crew, she knew the Defiant was finished. But she was not. "Navigation," she said calmly, "set a collision course for that carrier." Her remaining crew looked at her. They understood. They nodded. The Defiant accelerated toward a massive carrier, its remaining engines pushing to maximum power. Gunners tried to shoot it down, but the small ship was moving too fast, too unpredictably. Captain activated her final transmission. "This is the UES Defiant. Tell my daughter I love her. Tell Earth we did not kneel. Tell the enemy that this is what humans do when you threaten our home." The Defiant struck the carrier at full speed, piercing through its armor and into its engine core. The explosion was massive. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But the carrier had been one of the largest in the enemy fleet. Its loss sent shockwaves through the command. Across the battlefield, similar acts of courage repeated again and again. Human pilots rammed their damaged ships into enemy weapons. Captains detonated their own reactors when boarding parties came aboard. Engineers set traps that killed them along with dozens of invaders. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the human fleet was broken. Only 200 ships remained, most of them damaged. They retreated toward Earth, carrying their wounded and their grief. But they had not escaped untouched. High Consul stood in silence as his officers gave their report. 47 ships destroyed, 200 more damaged, 18,000 soldiers dead. In all his centuries of conquest, he had never lost so many in a first engagement against a primitive species. "High Consul," his tactical officer said carefully, "this is unprecedented. No species has ever fought like this." Said nothing. He was watching the recordings of the battle. He saw the human ships charging without hesitation. He saw Captain's final attack. He saw crews fighting to the last person, never surrendering, never running. He had expected fear. He had expected desperation. What he saw instead was something different. These humans were not trying to survive. They were trying to kill. They were trying to hurt his fleet as much as possible before they died. "It does not matter," he said finally. "They have lost most of their fleet. Earth lies open before us. Victory is certain." But his voice lacked its usual confidence. As the fleet continued toward Earth, their sensors detected something strange. Thousands of small signatures were emerging from the asteroid belt. Mining ships, cargo vessels, personal spacecraft, all of them were moving toward the fleet. "High Consul," the sensor officer said, confusion in his voice, "these ships, they are civilian vessels. They carry no military markings, but they are all armed, and they are all heading directly for us." Stared at the screen. Thousands of tiny dots, each one representing a human who had chosen to fly towards certain death rather than wait for the enemy to reach their home. For the first time, a cold feeling settled in his stomach. It was not fear, not yet, but it was the beginning of understanding. These humans were not like other species. They did not think like other species. They did not value their own lives above their cause. And that made them dangerous. More dangerous than he had ever imagined. The fleet arrived at Earth expecting a broken species. They expected white flags and surrender signals. They expected to find a planet ready to accept its new masters. What they found was a world that had become a fortress. Every orbital platform bristled with weapons. The moon had been turned into a giant gun battery, its surface covered with that could fire metal slugs at incredible speeds. Thousands of fighter craft launched from bases across the planet, rising into the sky like angry wasps defending their nest. And on the surface, 8 billion humans prepared for war. Factories that had once built cars and phones now produced rifles and ammunition. Universities that had studied science now designed bombs and traps. In every city, in every town, in every village, people prepared to fight. Old soldiers taught young people how to shoot. Engineers built hidden bunkers. Doctors set up emergency hospitals in subway tunnels and basements. Children helped their parents fill sandbags. Grandparents sharpened knives. No one ran. No one hid. Everyone understood what was at stake. This was not just a war. This was a fight for the right to exist as free beings. High Consul observed Earth from his command ship. He had expected to see chaos and fear. Instead, he saw a planet that had united against him. The sight troubled him, though he would not admit it to his officers. He decided to try one more time. Perhaps the humans simply needed to understand their situation more clearly. Open a channel to their leadership, he commanded. Offer them mercy. Tell them that if they surrender now, we will spare their lives. They will serve the Dominion, yes, but they will live. This is more than they deserve after their foolish resistance. The message was sent. The humans took an hour to respond. When the response came, it was not from a general or a president. It came from a 12-year-old girl named Maria Santos. She had been chosen by lottery to speak for humanity. Her face appeared on the screens, young and determined. "My grandfather told me to tell you something," she said, her voice clear and steady. "He said you can have Earth when you take it from our cold, dead hands." She paused, then smiled. "I think he was being too polite. I think you should just go away and never come back. But if you want to fight, we are ready, all of us, even me." The transmission ended. Felt something he could not name. Anger, confusion. These humans were insane. They were sending children to insult him. They were choosing death over the mercy he had offered. "Begin the invasion," he ordered. "Show them no mercy. They have chosen their fate." The Battle of Earth began. Ships moved into attack formation. Human orbital defenses opened fire. The darkness of space lit up with explosions and energy beams. Missiles by the thousands streaked in both directions. The lunar fired their massive projectiles. Each one was a building-sized piece of metal, accelerated to incredible speed. When they hit ships, they punched through armor like paper. They had never faced such weapons. They had no defense against them. But they had numbers. For every ship they lost, they destroyed 3 human platforms. Slowly, they pushed through the orbital defenses. Troop transports began descending toward the planet's surface. The ground war began. Soldiers landed in cities across Earth. They expected quick conquest. They had advanced weapons, superior armor, and centuries of combat experience. They had crushed resistance on hundreds of worlds. They had never faced anything like human urban warfare. In the ruins of New York, soldiers advanced down empty streets. The humans had fled, they thought. Then the buildings exploded. Hidden bombs brought down walls on the invaders. Snipers fired from 1,000 windows. Fighters emerged from sewers and subway tunnels, attacked and vanished again. In Tokyo, they found the streets filled with traps. trip wires connected to explosives, pits covered with thin metal, poison spikes hidden in doorways. Every step was dangerous. Every corner held death. In Cairo, human fighters used the ancient tunnels beneath the city. They appeared behind enemy lines, struck hard, and disappeared before they could respond. The invaders never knew where the next attack would come from. Commander led a battalion in the European sector. He had conquered 12 worlds. He had never experienced anything like this. His soldiers were dying not in battle, but in chaos. Humans attacked from everywhere and nowhere. They used weapons he had never seen before. They fought without uniforms, without rules, without mercy. He sent a report to High Consul. His hands were shaking as he wrote it. High Consul, we captured a human settlement in the mountains. There were 300 humans inside. When we breached their walls, they did not surrender. They detonated explosives hidden throughout the settlement. They killed themselves, their families, and 400 of our soldiers. There were no survivors. We found a message written on a wall. It said, "Freedom or death. There is no third choice." Commander paused before writing his conclusion. High Consul, these creatures are not normal. They do not fight to win. They fight to hurt us. They fight because fighting is what they do. I have seen soldiers throw themselves onto our weapons to give their friends one more second to attack. I have seen wounded humans crawl toward us with grenades in their hands. I have seen children spit at us even as we restrained them. He took a breath. I believe we have made a terrible mistake coming here. These humans would rather die than kneel, all of them, every single one, and they are taking many of us with them. On his flagship read the report. Around him, similar reports were coming from every front. The invasion was succeeding technically. They were taking ground, but the cost was enormous. Soldiers were dying by the thousands. Ships were being lost every hour, and the humans showed no signs of weakening. On the moon, in a hidden base, Doctor worked without sleep. She and her team had recovered pieces of technology from destroyed ships. They were studying it, learning its secrets. Knew they needed a miracle. They needed something that could change the balance of this war. As she examined the alien engine core, she began to understand how it worked. They used something called fold space to travel between stars. It bent space itself, allowing ships to cross vast distances in moments. If she could build one of these engines. Looked at her tired team. Everyone, I need you to focus. I think I know how we can win this war, but we need to work fast. Above her the battle continued. Humans died. Earth burned in 100 places. But humanity did not surrender. And deep in that lunar base, the seeds of their survival were beginning to grow. 3 months had passed since they arrived at Earth. The planet was with the marks of war. Cities lay in ruins. Forests burned. Rivers ran thick with ash. But Earth was not conquered, not even close. They controlled only 12% of the surface. Every meter of ground had cost them dearly. They had lost nearly 400 ships. 180,000 soldiers were dead. More died every single day. High Consul stood in his war room staring at the holographic map of Earth. Red zones showed control. They were small, so terribly small. Blue zones showed human resistance. They covered most of the planet like an ocean of defiance. In 12,000 years of conquest, the Dominion had never faced anything like this. A communication screen activated. The faces of the High Council appeared. These were the 5 most powerful beings in the Dominion. They ruled an empire of 4,000 star systems, and they were not happy. High Consul, the eldest counselor, spoke, explained this failure. Straightened. Honored Council, the humans have proven more resistant than expected, but victory is still certain. We simply need more time and resources. Time? Another counselor laughed coldly. You have had 3 months. You were given the largest fleet in a century, and you have been stopped by a species that discovered fire only yesterday. The situation is more complex, tried to explain. These humans fight differently. They do not follow the patterns of other species. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. They use tactics we have never seen. They turn their own cities into death traps. We do not care about their tactics, the eldest counselor said. We care about results. Do you know what is happening across the Dominion? The subject species are watching this war. They see humans fighting back. They see our soldiers dying. They are beginning to have ideas. Felt a chill run through him. Subject species were the foundation of the Dominion's power. Billions of slaves working in factories, mines, and farms. If they began to think resistance was possible. You have 30 days, the eldest counselor declared. Crush Earth or face the consequences. We are authorizing the use of planetary bombardment. End this, High Consul, by any means necessary. The transmission ended. Planetary bombardment. Weapons that could burn entire continents. They had been forbidden for 5,000 years because of their terrible power. Now the Council was willing to destroy Earth completely just to end this embarrassment. But even as planned his final assault, something was happening that would change everything. On the Moon, Doctor had done the impossible. Her team had built a working fold space engine. It was rough, unstable, and dangerous, but it worked. Humans could now travel between stars. General studied the engine with wonder. You are telling me this can take us anywhere in the galaxy? Not anywhere, Doctor corrected. It has limited range and it might explode. We have only tested it twice. She smiled tiredly. But yes, we can reach space. We can take the war to them. General made her decision quickly. She called together the military leadership for an emergency meeting. We cannot win by defense alone, she told them. We need to show them that they are not safe, that their homes, their stations, their comfort is at risk. We need Operation Counterstrike. Admiral, who had survived the Battle of Mars with her remaining ships, stepped forward. I will lead the mission. Give me 50 ships and volunteers. We will hit them where they least expect it. Volunteers came by the thousands, more than they could possibly take. Engineers, soldiers, pilots, even scientists wanted to join. They all knew this was likely a one-way mission. They did not care. 50 ships were fitted with the prototype fold engines. They were loaded with weapons, supplies, and brave men and women who had said goodbye to their families. Admiral addressed her fleet one last time before departure. We are about to do something no human has ever done. We are going to enter enemy space. We are going to attack a supply station. We are going to show them that distance cannot protect them from us. She paused. Many of us will not come back, but those who survive will carry a message that humanity is not prey. We are not victims. We are hunters, and we are coming for them. The fold engines activated. Space bent and twisted around the 50 ships. In a flash of light, they vanished from Earth's solar system. They emerged 3 star systems away, right next to a massive supply station. The station was unprepared. No enemy had ever reached this deep into Dominion space. Security was minimal. The attack was devastating. Human ships tore through the station's defenses. They destroyed fuel reserves, weapon caches, and communication arrays. They freed thousands of slaves from other species who had been working in the station. And when the reinforcements finally arrived, the humans were ready to leave. But Admiral had one more thing to do. She activated a broadcast aimed at Her face appeared on screens across enemy space. Millions saw her. Billions of their subject species saw her. I am Admiral Way of Earth, she said. You came to our home, you tried to make us slaves, you thought we would kneel like all the others. Her eyes were hard as steel. We do not kneel, we never kneel, and now we have come to you. This was just the beginning. The next fleet will be bigger. The one after that will be bigger still. We will keep coming, we will never stop, because that is what humans do. She smiled, cold and dangerous. You should have left us alone. The human fleet engaged their fold engines and vanished. When they arrived at the ruined station, they found a message scratched into the wall of the command center. Humanity was here, we will be back. On his flagship orbiting Earth received the news. Humans in space. Humans attacking their supply lines. Humans broadcasting messages of defiance to the entire empire. His aide noticed the change in the High Consul's expression. For the first time in his 600 years, looked uncertain, perhaps even afraid. High Consul, the aide asked carefully, "Are you well?" Did not answer. He was staring at the recording of Admiral's face. Those eyes, that smile, no fear, no hesitation, just pure, absolute determination. He had conquered 312 species. He had broken the spirit of countless civilizations. But these humans, they did not break. They did not bend. The more he pushed them, the harder they pushed back. For the first time, he wondered if victory was even possible. Across the Dominion, subject species watched the recordings of the human attack. They had spent centuries believing resistance was impossible. Now they saw a species fighting back. Now they saw a species winning. Hope is a dangerous thing in an empire built on despair. And humanity had just given hope to the entire galaxy. 6 months after the first ship appeared in Earth's sky, the galaxy was changing. Across the Dominion, whispers spread like fire through dry grass. Stories of the humans who refused to kneel. Stories of the fleet that attacked space. Stories of a species that fought with such fury that even the mighty Dominion could not crush them. On a mining world called 4, the slave workers stopped their machines. For the first time in 3 centuries, they looked up from their labor. They had seen the broadcasts. They had heard the human message. And something had awakened inside them. If the humans can fight, one worker said to another, why can we not? Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Small acts of resistance at first, slower work, hidden sabotage, stolen weapons, then larger acts, strikes, protests, attacks on guards. The fire that humanity had started was spreading. The High Council was furious. They sent ships to crush the rebellions, but every ship they sent to restore order was a ship not fighting at Earth. Their empire was stretching thin. Their resources were draining. Their perfect control was cracking. On Earth, humanity was still fighting. The planet was wounded but not broken. Humans had learned to fight in the ruins. They had adapted to the weapons and tactics. New ships launched every day from hidden factories. Soldiers trained in underground bases. The resistance grew stronger instead of weaker. High Consul received his final orders from the Council. They had authorized the ultimate weapon. Orbital bombardment platforms were moving into position above Earth. Within hours, they would begin burning the planet. Continents would be turned to glass. Oceans would boil. Every human would die. It would be a complete victory. And a complete confession of failure. But before could give the order, his communications officer interrupted with urgent news. High Consul, 3 of our colony worlds are under attack. Spun around, which worlds? 4 Prime and the station. Human ships, High Consul. They emerged from fold space simultaneously. They are not attacking military targets. They are broadcasting. The recordings played across the command deck. Human faces appeared on screens throughout the empire. But this time, they were not just speaking to they were speaking to the slaves. We are humanity, the broadcast said. We have been fighting for 6 months. We have not surrendered. We will never surrender. And we want you to know something important. The speaker paused, looking directly into the camera. You do not have to accept slavery. You can fight. You can resist. You can be free. We did not wait for someone to save us. We saved ourselves, and you can do the same. The message spread across 100 worlds. Slaves who had never dreamed of freedom suddenly saw possibility. If these humans could resist the mighty Dominion. The rebellions that followed were spontaneous and massive. On 4, workers overthrew their guards and took control of the mining complex. On Prime, the subject species rose up and captured the colonial governor. On a dozen other worlds, similar uprisings began. The empire, which had stood for 12,000 years, was tearing itself apart. Watch the reports flood in. Rebellion here, uprising there, ships needed everywhere. His grand fleet, already weakened by the Earth campaign, could not be in all places at once. He faced an impossible choice. Destroy Earth and let the empire crumble, or save the empire and abandon the conquest. He stood alone in his command chamber, looking at the blue planet below. Such a small world, such a stubborn species. They had done something no one in galactic history had ever managed. They had broken the myth of invincibility. They had shown the galaxy that resistance was possible. And now the galaxy was listening. Made his decision. He was a conqueror, but he was not a fool. A dead empire could not enjoy victories. All ships, he commanded, his voice heavy, prepare for withdrawal. We are returning to the core worlds. His officers stared at him in shock. High Consul, we are retreating. We are repositioning, corrected. But they all knew the truth. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Dominion was running away. Before leaving, sent one final transmission to Earth. It reached General in her command bunker. Human leader, his voice came through the speakers. You have won this battle, we are withdrawing. But know this, you have destroyed something ancient today. The order that kept this galaxy stable for you have unleashed chaos. The subject species will rise up. Empires will fall. Wars will spread. Billions will die. And it will all be because of you, because you would not simply kneel. General listened calmly. When the message ended, she activated her own transmission. Commander, you do not understand us at all. You speak of chaos. We speak of freedom. You speak of order. We speak of slavery. You kept the galaxy stable by crushing everyone under your boot. Her voice hardened. We would rather have chaos and freedom than order and chains. And if the galaxy burns while throwing off your yoke, then let it burn. From the ashes, something better will rise. She leaned forward. Go home, alien. Tell your masters what you found here. Tell them about the species that refuse to kneel. Tell them that if they ever return, we will be waiting. And next time, we will be the ones knocking on their gates. The fleet turned and departed. Humans across the world watched them go. In shelters and bunkers, in ruins and resistance camps, people emerged to look up at the sky. They had survived. Against all odds, against an empire that had never lost, they had survived. Cheers erupted across the planet. Strangers embraced. Soldiers wept. Children who had grown up under alien bombardment saw clear skies for the first time. Humanity had won. 1 year later, Earth's first true interstellar fleet launched from the rebuilt orbital stations. 200 ships, each one carrying the message of freedom. They were not going out as conquerors. They were going as liberators. The former slave species of the Dominion had fought their way free on a dozen worlds. They needed allies. They needed friends. They needed to know they were not alone. And humanity was coming. Admiral commanded the flagship of the Liberation Fleet. As they prepared to engage their fold engines, she addressed the galaxy one more time. To all species fighting for freedom, we hear you, we see you, and we are on our way. You are not alone anymore. You never have to be alone again. She smiled, warm and fierce at the same time. This is humanity. We do not conquer, we do not enslave, but we will fight beside anyone who refuses to kneel. Together, we will build something new, something better, a galaxy where every species is free. The fleet jumped into fold space, vanishing in a flash of light. Across the stars, oppressed beings looked up from their chains and saw hope coming. They had expected submission. They had expected another easy conquest, another species broken beneath their rule. Instead, they had awakened something they could not destroy. A spark of defiance that spread from world to world. They had found humanity. And the galaxy would never be the same. In the end, it was not weapons that defeated the It was not tactics or technology. It was something simpler and more powerful. It was the refusal to accept defeat. The stubborn, irrational, beautiful human belief that freedom is worth any price. Some species kneel when faced with overwhelming force. They calculate the odds and make the logical choice. Humans are not such a species. And that made all the difference.